The lights on the bridge of the New Horizon flickered yet again. Captain Jake Morrison rubbed his weary eyes and scanned the damage report on his console. 50 years had passed since the Terra incident, and the ship's aging systems were showing their wear. "Just like everything else about humanity these days," he muttered. "Captain, we're nearing the boundary," Lisa Harper reported from the navigation console. Her voice was calm, but Jake caught the underlying tension. Behind them lay all they had ever known. Ahead was nothing but the void, and whatever remnants of humanity still clung to existence out there. The Galactic Council had been unequivocal 50 years ago. Humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too prone to violence. The verdict was swift. Every colony, station, and ship was exiled from civilized space. The proud Zephyrians, with their gleaming crystal cities, and the logical Voron collective, had voted as one. Humanity was banished. Jake's grandfather had told him the tales, how the ambassadors pleaded, tried to explain what truly happened at Terra, begged for another chance. But the Council's faces held only fear and disgust. The decision was absolute. Humans had 1 year to leave Council space forever. "How are the engines holding up, Tom?" Jake called to the engineering station. Tom Bradley glanced up, his grim smile a mix of determination and resignation. "Running on prayers and duct tape, Captain, but they'll get us there." Where they needed to go was the quarantine zone, a vast, desolate region at the galaxy's edge where humanity was condemned to remain. The New Horizons mission, given by humanity's final government before its collapse, was straightforward. Find survivors and help them however possible. At the science station, Dr. Kate Reynolds was absorbed in long-range sensor readings. Born after the exile, she was younger than most of the crew. Sometimes Jake envied her ignorance. She'd never seen Earth's azure skies or walked the great space stations. But she also never knew the agony of losing them. "Captain," Kate said suddenly, her voice tinged with urgency, "I'm detecting something unusual." Jake moved to her station. The display revealed what should have been barren space. "According to all the maps, there's nothing here but rocks and dead worlds," Kate murmured. Yet the readings told another story. "These energy signatures," she said, her voice hushed, "they're unnatural." Lisa double-checked her navigation charts. "We're in the quarantine zone now, Captain, but this doesn't make sense." On the main screen, the view outside appeared empty, a void of endless black. But as they moved further in, faint shapes emerged. At first, Jake thought they were asteroids. Then he realized they weren't. Ships, dozens of them. Some looked cobbled, together from remnants of old human vessels. Others were sleek, unfamiliar designs that seemed alive, their forms shifting and flowing. They were unmistakably human creations, but far beyond the technology humanity possessed 50 years ago. "Captain," Tom said, his voice unsteady, "these ships, their power levels are off the charts. They're using tech we've never seen before." Before Jake could respond, the comms crackled to life. A voice, speaking clear English with an unfamiliar accent, filled the bridge. "Unknown vessel. This is Admiral Ryan Clark of the Shadow Fleet. State your identity and purpose." Jake froze at the name. Shadow Fleet? He'd never heard of such a thing. After the exile, the human military had been dismantled. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the New Horizon," he replied cautiously. "We're on a mission from Earth's last government, searching for surviving human settlements." There was a long pause before the voice returned. Warmer this time. "Captain Morrison, welcome to the Outer Reach. Please follow the escort vessels to Haven Station. There are some things you need to see." 2 sleek ships emerged, flanking the New Horizon. Their movements were so fluid and precise that Jake's old vessel felt like a clunky relic in comparison. As they ventured further into the asteroid field, the surroundings transformed. What had seemed like barren rocks revealed hidden bases and bustling shipyards. "My God," Lisa whispered, her voice barely audible. "How many people are out here?" Kate's eyes remained fixed on her instruments, her astonishment growing with every passing second. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple space stations, mining operations, and farms, actual agricultural platforms in space. This isn't mere survival, this is an entire civilization." As the New Horizon approached Haven Station, Jake found himself momentarily breathless. The station was enormous, dwarfing anything humans had constructed before their exile. Its exterior appeared like a jumble of old debris, a masterful disguise. But Jake could see the truth. Beneath the faux rust and scattered plating lay cutting-edge technology, gleaming with latent power. Massive docking bay doors opened, and Jake piloted the ship inside. The bay itself was a testament to efficiency and purpose, filled with ships bearing sleek, unfamiliar designs. Crews moved briskly, wearing uniforms that bore no resemblance to the military attire of Earth's past. Jake and his crew disembarked. A tall woman in a sharp blue uniform approached. Her gray hair framed a face marked by intelligence, her eyes keen and piercing. "Captain Morrison," she greeted, extending a hand. "I'm Director Helen Foster. Welcome to what remains of humanity. Or perhaps, what humanity has become." Jake took in the bustling bay, his mind racing. "Director, how is this possible? We were told all human settlements had been destroyed or abandoned." Helen's smile carried a weight of defiance and pride. "The Galactic Council made a critical mistake when they exiled us. They thought they were eliminating humanity's problems. Instead, they gave us the freedom to become something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. Come with me. There's 50 years of history you need to catch up on." They walked through corridors alive with activity. The advanced technology, the focused faces, everything told a story of resilience and ingenuity. Jake realized then how wrong he'd been about humanity's fate. They hadn't just survived their banishment, they had thrived. For the first time in years, Jake felt hope. Hope tinged with the exhilarating realization that the galaxy might not know what humanity had become. The exile was supposed to mark the end of their story. Instead, it had written humanity's beginning. 3 years later, Jake Morrison stood in Haven Station's command center, surrounded by dozens of screens broadcasting human activity across the galaxy. It still felt surreal, witnessing just how wrong he'd been. Helen Foster joined him, handing him a cup of coffee that smelled richer than anything he'd experienced in decades. Time had added streaks of silver to her gray hair, which caught the light of the displays. "It's hard to believe, isn't it, Jake?" she said, sipping from her mug. "When the council cast us out, they thought we'd disappear, fade into the shadows, and quietly die." Jake nodded, his eyes fixed on the screens. Each display revealed a different settlement, stations built into hollowed asteroids, free-floating hubs disguised as debris, even planets once deemed worthless by the council now brimming with life. "How many of us are there now?" Jake asked, his voice tinged with awe. "Just over 200 million at the last count," Helen replied. "We've established 347 major settlements, not including mobile fleets and research stations." Jake shook his head in disbelief. The enormity of it all, what humanity had achieved in exile, was staggering. When the Council exiled humanity, fewer than 50 million people had escaped its borders. Now their numbers had more than quadrupled, all while living in secrecy. "The birth rate has been remarkable," Helen noted. "It turns out, when people have genuine hope for the future, they want to build families, and we've done a good job of giving them that hope." Alex Turner approached with a data pad brimming with intelligence reports. As the chief intelligence officer for the Outer Reach Collective, Alex had a better grasp on council affairs than many of its own members. "Helen, Jake, you need to see this," Alex said, his voice charged with urgency. "We've been monitoring Council communications for months and things are unraveling. Jake took the pad, skimming the reports. The Council's economy was in disarray. Food shortages plagued several member species, trade disputes were escalating, and whispers of secession were growing louder. The Zephyrians are struggling the most, Alex explained. Their crystal cities require enormous energy inputs, but their power sources are failing. They've been asking for aid, but every other species has its own crises to manage. Helen's smile was laced with irony. 50 years ago, they had everything: resources, allies, stability. Now look at them. Jake read further, noting the unrest within the Voran collective. Uprisings had erupted on several of their worlds. Their famed logical systems faltered in addressing issues that required adaptability and creativity. Once loyal species were beginning to question whether the Council's governance was still viable. There's more, Alex said, pulling up another file. We've made discreet contact with some of these dissatisfied worlds. They don't know they're speaking to humans, but they're very open to the idea of alternatives to Council rule. Before Jake could respond, a young pilot burst into the command center. Sam Davis, just 25, was already one of their most accomplished scouts. His face was alight with excitement. "Director Foster," he panted. "You need to see what I found." Sam activated the central holographic display, revealing an ancient artifact covered in shifting, otherworldly symbols. "I discovered this in the Kepler sector," Sam began, "hidden inside what we thought was a dead comet. But it's not dead. It's been waiting." Dr. Kate Reynolds, now their foremost expert on alien technology and history, examined the display closely. Over the past 3 years, she'd built a reputation for unraveling mysteries like this. "These symbols," Kate murmured, "aren't from any Council species. But they're undoubtedly artificial. Someone created this." Sam nodded, his enthusiasm growing. "That's not the best part. When I approached, the artifact activated and started transmitting coordinates. The holographic map shifted, displaying star charts with 12 locations marked by pulsing red lights. Jake recognized the regions immediately, areas deemed forbidden or too dangerous by the Council. All these locations, Sam explained, are in zones where Council ships aren't allowed, just like our quarantine zone. Helen studied the map, her brow furrowed. "Alex, do we have any records of other species being exiled by the Council?" Alex consulted his database. "Actually, yes. Over the past 500 years, at least 6 species were labeled incompatible with galactic civilization and banished. We assumed they perished." Kate's eyes gleamed with realization. "What if they didn't die? What if they survived, just like we did?" A heavy silence fell as the room absorbed the implications. If other exiled species had endured and established their own civilizations, humanity might not be alone in opposing the Council. "Sam," Helen said finally, her voice firm, "how soon can your ship be ready for a long-range mission?" 6 hours, Sam replied without hesitation. "Alex," Helen continued, "I want everything we have on those exiled species. Their capabilities, their last known locations. Everything." "Already on it," Alex said, fingers moving swiftly across his pad. Jake stared at the star map, a mix of anticipation and trepidation bubbling within him. "Helen, if we reach out to these exiles, we're not just representing humanity anymore. We're talking about forging an alliance." Helen nodded slowly. "The Council discarded all of us, thinking we were problems they didn't want to solve. Maybe it's time to show them what happens when all their problems decide to unite." Kate, still engrossed in the artifact's data, spoke up. "There's something else. This artifact's technology is far beyond anything the Council has. If the species who built it are still alive, they might be even stronger than the Council." Helen's gaze returned to the holographic map. Around them, the command center's displays showed thriving human settlements, but Jake no longer saw them as hiding places. They were the foundations of something far greater, something that could challenge the galaxy's mightiest power. Sam was already heading for the door, eager to begin his mission. "Director, which coordinates should I investigate first?" Helen studied the map one last time before answering. When the Council exiled humanity, fewer than 50 million people had escaped its borders. Now, their numbers had more than quadrupled, all while living in secrecy. "The birth rate has been remarkable," Helen noted. "It turns out, when people have genuine hope for the future, they want to build families, and we've done a good job of giving them that hope." Alex Turner approached with a data pad brimming with intelligence reports. As the chief intelligence officer for the Outer Reach Collective, Alex had a better grasp on council affairs than many of its own members. "Helen, Jake, you need to see this," Alex said, his voice charged with urgency. "We've been monitoring council communications for months, and things are unraveling." Jake took the pad, skimming the reports. The council's economy was in disarray. Food shortages plagued several member species. Trade disputes were escalating, and whispers of secession were growing louder. "The Zephyrians are struggling the most," Alex explained. "Their crystal cities require enormous energy inputs, but their power sources are failing. They've been asking for aid, but every other species has its own crises to manage." Helen's smile was laced with irony. 50 years ago, they had everything: resources, allies, stability. Now look at them. Jake read further, noting the unrest within the Voran Collective. Uprisings had erupted on several of their worlds. Their famed logical systems faltered in addressing issues that required adaptability and creativity. Once loyal species were beginning to question whether the Council's governance was still viable. "There's more," Alex said, pulling up another file. "We've made discreet contact with some of these dissatisfied worlds. They don't know they're speaking to humans, but they're very open to the idea of alternatives to Council rule." Before Jake could respond, a young pilot burst into the command center. Sam Davis, just 25, was already one of their most accomplished scouts. His face was alight with excitement. "Director Foster," he panted, "you need to see what I found." Sam activated the central holographic display, revealing an ancient artifact covered in shifting, otherworldly symbols. "I discovered this in the Kepler sector," Sam began, "hidden inside what we thought was a dead comet. But it's not dead. It's been waiting." Dr. Kate Reynolds, now their foremost expert on alien technology and history, examined the display closely. Over the past 3 years, she'd built a reputation for unraveling mysteries like this. "These symbols," Kate murmured, "aren't from any council species, but they're undoubtedly artificial. Someone created this." Sam nodded, his enthusiasm growing. "That's not the best part. When I approached, the artifact activated and started transmitting coordinates. The holographic map shifted, displaying star charts with 12 locations marked by pulsing red lights. Jake recognized the regions immediately, areas deemed forbidden or too dangerous by the Council. "All these locations," Sam explained, "are in zones where Council ships aren't allowed, just like our quarantine zone." Helen studied the map, her brow furrowed. "Alex, do we have any records of other species being exiled by the Council?" Alex consulted his database. "Actually, yes. Over the past 500 years, at least 6 species were labeled incompatible with galactic civilization and banished." "We assumed they perished!" Kate's eyes gleamed with realization. "What if they didn't die? What if they survived just like we did?" A heavy silence fell as the room absorbed the implications. If other exiled species had endured and established their own civilizations, humanity might not be alone in opposing the Council. "Sam," Helen said finally, her voice firm, "how soon can your ship be ready for a long-range mission?" 6 hours, Sam replied without hesitation. "Alex," Helen continued, I want everything we have on those exiled species. Their capabilities, their last known locations, everything. Already on it, Alex said, fingers moving swiftly. Across his pad. Jake stared at the star map, a mix of anticipation and trepidation bubbling within him. Helen, if we reach out to these exiles, we're not just representing humanity anymore. We're talking about forging an alliance. Helen nodded slowly. The Council discarded all of us, thinking we were problems they didn't want to solve. Maybe it's time to show them what happens when all their problems decide to unite. Kate, still engrossed in the artifact's data, spoke up. There's something else. This artifact's technology is far beyond anything the Council has. If the species who built it are still alive, they might be even stronger than the Council. Helen's gaze returned to the holographic map. Around them, the command center's displays showed thriving human settlements, but Jake no longer saw them as hiding places. They were the foundations of something far greater, something that could challenge the galaxy's mightiest power. Sam was already heading for the door, eager to begin his mission. Director, which coordinates should I investigate first? Helen studied the map one last time before answering. Helen pointed to the closest marked location on the holographic map. Start there. But Sam, remember, whatever's out there has been in exile even longer than we have. They may not be friendly. Understood, Sam replied with a confident grin. But if they despise the Council as much as we do, that's a good start. As Sam hurried to prepare his ship, Jake felt the weight of the moment. For half a century, humanity had grown in the shadows, amassing strength in secrecy. Now, they were on the verge of discovering if their struggle was solitary or if the galaxy held others who, like them, remembered what it meant to be discarded. The Outer Reach Collective was evolving into something far larger, and the Galactic Council had no idea what was coming. 2 months later, Sam gripped the controls of his scout ship as he neared the Kepler void. The artifact's coordinates had led him here to the darkest and most forbidding region of space he'd ever seen. Following behind at a safe distance were Captain Morrison aboard the New Horizon and Dr. Reynolds on her research vessel. The void was inscrutable, silent, empty, and unreadable on all sensors. But Sam had learned to trust his instincts. Humans had mastered the art of concealment, and if other exiled species had survived, they likely had too. Sam, are you picking up anything? Morrison's voice crackled over the comms. Not yet, Captain, Sam replied, scanning his controls. But that doesn't mean there's nothing here. Activating a specialized beacon designed by Kate Reynolds using the artifact's technology, Sam hoped it would serve as a peaceful signal. A declaration that humanity came as allies, sharing a mutual enemy in the Council. The waiting stretched unbearably until, suddenly, Sam's sensors blazed with activity. Ships emerged as if from nowhere, materializing from the empty void. They were enormous, their bulk suggesting fortress-like resilience. Their armor was thick, their weapons unmistakably formidable. While their design was alien, Sam could recognize the intelligent pragmatism behind it. A voice boomed over the comms, deep and commanding, its alien words barely comprehensible as the translator worked furiously to catch up. Unknown vessels, you bear the beacon of old enemies. State your purpose or face destruction. Morrison's voice came through steady and calm. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Outer Reach Collective. We followed coordinates from an ancient artifact. We believe we share a common history and a common foe. A tense pause followed, heavy with unspoken questions. Then the alien voice responded, this time in smoother, clearer language. Humans, it said with cold recognition. We remember your kind from Council records. You were exiled for the same crimes as us. I am War Leader Ironheart of the Ashanti. Remnant, follow our ships. Any hostile action will result in your destruction. The alien vessels flanked the human ships, creating an escort as they approached what initially appeared to be a barren moon. But as they neared, Sam's eyes widened. The moon was no moon. Its hollow interior housed a vast underground city. The entrance loomed ahead, an imposing gateway into a civilization built for war. Once inside, the city's purpose became unmistakable. Its architecture was austere and unyielding, every structure designed to endure siege or bombardment. Armed sentinels stood watch at strategic points, their gaze heavy on the human visitors. The Ashanti themselves were a sight to behold, tall and imposing, their metallic skin shimmering like liquid steel, their eyes glowing with a fierce inner light. Sam hesitated, the enormity of the task weighing on him. But then he saw the determination in the faces around the room, the Ashanti warriors, the echoing mind's projection, and his fellow humans. He straightened his posture and nodded. "I'll do it, but I'll need the best ship we've got and some serious stealth tech." Helen nodded. "You'll have it. Work with Kate and Colonel Wright. Prepare for every scenario. We can't afford to lose you." As Sam left to begin his preparations, Morrison turned back to the holographic map. The galaxy felt vast, but for the first time, the exiles weren't isolated fragments. They were beginning to form a network, a web of alliances and shared goals. Ironheart, still skeptical but intrigued, leaned forward. "You talk about offering something better, but the Council's grip on their member species is deep. Even if they're unhappy, will they trust you enough to turn?" Morrison met her gaze. "They don't have to trust us at first. They just need to see that there's an alternative. That's why this alliance is so important. When we stand together, we're not just offering rebellion, we're offering hope." Node Prime's projection added, "Hope is a powerful weapon. The Council has relied on fear to maintain control, but fear breaks when faced with unity and possibility." Kate chimed in, her excitement barely contained. "And with the echoing minds providing intelligence, the Ashanti's military strength and humanity's adaptability, we have the beginnings of something unprecedented. It's not just about surviving anymore. It's about redefining what the galaxy can be." The room grew quiet as Helen Foster stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "We have a chance to change the course of history. The Council cast us out because they feared our potential. Let's show them that exile didn't break us. It made us stronger. We don't just fight for revenge. We fight for a future where no one is thrown away again." The representatives from the Ashanti remnant and the echoing minds exchanged glances, their differences momentarily set aside by the shared gravity of the moment. Ironheart's fist slammed down again, but this time with resolve. "I don't care how long it takes. If we can finally take back what was stolen from us and build something better, I'm in." Node Prime's projection flickered with agreement. "We will stand with you. Together, we will find the others. Together, we will be unstoppable." As the meeting dispersed, Jake Morrison stood at the edge of the room, gazing at the growing map of their galaxy. Exile had once been a death sentence. Now it was the foundation of a new beginning. The supervisors are impressed, but they're nervous. If the Council finds out they're using non-approved methods, the penalties could shut down entire factories. Sam nodded, his face thoughtful. "We need to keep this under wraps for now. The Council doesn't tolerate innovation outside their control, but if we can prove these methods work on a larger scale, we'll have a bargaining chip they can't ignore." Maya crossed her arms. "Bargaining chip? The workers here don't need chips. They need change. They're living under constant surveillance, working insane hours to meet quotas that only benefit the Council elite. If we're going to make a difference, we need to do more than fix their factories. We need to free them." Sam sighed. "I get it, Maya, but we can't blow our cover. Not yet. The key to winning this isn't a single rebellion. It's showing the galaxy that there's a better way. And for that, we need allies in places where the Council thinks they're safe." Their conversation was interrupted by the distant hum of patrol drones. Maya grabbed her gear. "We'll keep spreading the methods quietly, but if this takes off, Sam, you'd better be ready for the fallout." As she slipped out through a hidden exit, Sam's communicator buzzed with a coded message. It was from Captain Morrison, now stationed in a hidden outpost near the Ashanti Remnant's base. Message: Sam, your efforts are paying off. Node Prime's latest scans show increased unrest in several Council-controlled sectors. The Mandorian trade houses are starting to push back on Council tariffs, and we're hearing whispers of worker strikes on Thermax. Keep up the momentum. But be cautious. Council intelligence is catching on. They've assigned special agents to investigate these anomalies. Sam pocketed the communicator and headed for his ship. The Council was waking up to the cracks in their foundation, and they wouldn't take it lightly. Back on Haven Station, Director Helen Foster stood before a group of representatives from the exiled species now aligned with humanity. The Ashanti Remnant, the Echoing Minds, and a handful of others who had recently joined were strategizing their next moves. "Our network is growing," Helen said, gesturing to the holographic map showing dozens of points of unrest and resistance. "But we're still operating in the shadows. For this alliance to succeed, we'll need to come into the light. And when we do, the Council will bring everything they have against us." Ironheart, ever the warrior, slammed her fist on the table. "Let them come. We've waited centuries for this. The Council needs to understand what happens when they try to bury their problems instead of solving them." Node Prime's voice resonated in their minds. "Patience, Ironheart. The Council is crumbling under its own weight. Their power depends on the illusion of control. If we strike too soon, we risk uniting them against us. But if we strike at the right moment, their own divisions will do half our work for us." Helen nodded. Agreed. Sam's work inside Council space is proving that even their most loyal systems are starting to question the old ways. The key now is coordination. When the time comes, we need every member of this alliance ready to act as one. Morrison leaned forward. "And what about the artifact? The other exiles? If there are more out there, finding them could tip the scales in our favor." Dr. Kate Reynolds, who had been studying the artifact non-stop, spoke up. "We've decoded more of its data. The remaining coordinates point to regions even farther from Council space, places we haven't explored yet. It's risky, but if those species survived, they might hold technology or knowledge that could shift the balance." Helen turned to Sam's holographic projection, transmitted from deep within Council space. "Sam, we're pushing the Council from the inside. But we need more allies if we're going to break them for good. Keep doing what you're doing. The galaxy is starting to notice." Sam saluted. "Understood, Director. Just make sure when the time comes, we're ready to back it up." As the projection faded, Helen looked at the assembled leaders and exiles. "The Council cast us all out because they thought we were weak. Let's show them how wrong they were. They're mobilizing fleets from across the Council's territories. Once they're in position, they'll strike all at once. This isn't just about us anymore. It's a message to anyone thinking of defying them." The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Helen finally broke the silence. "If they think this is going to scare the galaxy back into submission, they're wrong. We've spent 50 years preparing for this moment. It's time we show them what we're capable of." The plan to counter the Council over the next several weeks, Haven Station became a hive of activity. The Alliance's leaders worked tirelessly to coordinate a response. Military strategy, Colonel Ben Wright, took charge of the defensive preparations, fortifying key locations. Using Ashanti technology, human settlements were equipped with cloaking, devices, and planetary shields to withstand the Council's assault. Asymmetric warfare. Small, fast ships would engage in hit-and-run tactics, exploiting the weaknesses in Council fleet formations identified by Node Prime. Allied forces. Ironheart mobilized the Ashanti fleet, preparing to engage the Council head-on. if necessary. Expanding the alliance, Director Foster worked with Node Prime and Sam Davis to solidify alliances. Independent worlds. The 17 species Sam's contact mentioned were officially brought into the fold, forming the core of a new coalition. Propaganda campaign. Node Prime's telepathic abilities were used to subtly spread the truth about the Council's corruption to sympathetic populations, sowing further dissent. The truth about the Terra incident, Dr. Kate Reynolds and her team worked around the clock to ensure the truth about the Terra incident could be broadcast galaxy-wide. Evidence compilation. Using Node Prime's mental archives and intelligence from Sam's operations, they built an airtight case against the Council. Coordinated release. The evidence would be released simultaneously across multiple communication channels, ensuring the Council couldn't suppress it. The final meeting? In the war room on Haven Station, the Alliance's leaders gathered for what could be their last meeting before open conflict erupted. "Are we ready?" Helen asked, her voice steady but determined. Admiral Clark nodded. "Our forces are as prepared as they can be. The Ashanti and Echoing Minds have integrated with our fleets, and the new allies are mobilizing their own defenses. Do we have confirmation from the dissidents within Council space?" Morrison asked. Sam, appearing via hologram, replied, "Yes, several high-ranking officials are ready to defect as soon as the Council launches their attack. They'll provide critical intelligence to undermine the fleet's coordination." Ironheart spoke up, her voice fierce. "When the Council strikes, we'll be ready to hit them where it hurts. They've underestimated us for the last time." Helen looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each leader. "This is it. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for a new future, for every species the Council has wronged. Let's remind them what happens when they try to silence us." As the leaders dispersed to their stations, the holographic map updated, showing the Council fleets converging on human territories. The countdown had begun. The galaxy at a turning point. The stage was set for the largest conflict the galaxy had seen in centuries. But this time, it wasn't just humanity standing alone in the darkness. Echoing Minds' neural interface systems, Mandorian propulsion enhancements, and the agricultural innovations of the Zetharians all combined into vessels that symbolized the unity of the exiled species. Each ship was a testament to decades of collaboration and resilience. Admiral Clark's flagship, New Terra, led the fleet, its sleek design both imposing and elegant. The Council's fleets, scattered across various systems, were caught entirely off guard. The first strike. The Council's reaction was swift but disorganized. They scrambled to mobilize their forces, but the Commonwealth had the advantage. Operation. Dawn wasn't just a military campaign, it was an information war. Phase 1. Breaking the chains. The Commonwealth began by targeting key Council infrastructure, communication hubs, using Echoing Minds' telepathic networks. The Commonwealth hijacked Council communication systems, broadcasting messages of hope and freedom while disrupting Council coordination. Economic centers. On planets like Mindor Prime and Thermax, the Mandorian trade houses and industrial unions switched their allegiance, effectively collapsing the Council's economic backbone. Military command. Sabotage teams, equipped with advanced stealth technology, infiltrated Council military command centers, crippling their ability to respond effectively. Phase 2. Building momentum. Across the galaxy, exiled species and oppressed colonies joined the rebellion. On Ashanti worlds, massive war machines began mobilizing, while Echoing Minds operatives connected dissidents in real time. The Zetharian benefactor revealed itself as a key player, rallying Zetharian fleets to the Commonwealth cause. Phase 3. The counteroffensive. The Commonwealth fleet struck with precision. Skirmishes at strategic points. Using advanced cloaking and maneuverability, Commonwealth ships hit Council fleets at weak points, avoiding unnecessary losses. Planetary liberation, on key worlds like Thermax and Mandor Prime, Commonwealth. Ground forces coordinated with local resistance groups to take control. Turning the tide as the Council struggled to maintain order, Node Prime delivered devastating intelligence. The Council High Command is retreating to a secure facility on Vexus Prime. If we strike there, we can decapitate their leadership. Admiral Clark didn't hesitate. He ordered the fleet to Vexus Prime, leaving a skeleton force to hold the liberated territories. The Battle of Vexus Prime. The battle was unlike any other in galactic history. Space combat, Commonwealth ships outmaneuvered. The Council's outdated tactics, demonstrating the superiority of their combined technology. Ground invasion, Ashanti warriors, supported by human and Zetharian forces, stormed the Council's fortress. Their objective wasn't just to defeat the Council militarily, but to capture its leaders and expose their corruption to the galaxy. By the time the Council fleet realized the trap, it was too late. The Commonwealth had broken through their defenses and captured the facility. A new era, with the Council's leadership in custody and its fleet in disarray, the galaxy was at a crossroads. Helen Foster stood before the galaxy's leaders, her voice steady and resolute. We are not here to replace one tyranny with another. The Commonwealth is not about control, it's about freedom. Together, we will build a new galactic order, one that values cooperation over domination, unity over fear. The galaxy listened. One by one, worlds pledged their allegiance to the Commonwealth. Not yet, Captain, the navigator replied, her tone calm but eager. But their last transmission hinted at something promising, a signal from beyond the galactic rim, unlike anything we've seen before. Morrison nodded, his gaze fixed on the vast expanse of stars outside the viewport. The Commonwealth was no longer just rebuilding, it was expanding, reaching for the unknown. This mission wasn't about conquest or diplomacy, but discovery. Set course for the signal's origin, Morrison commanded. Let's see what the universe has in store for us. As freedom's dawn accelerated into the void, Morrison couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. From scattered survivors, fighting for their existence, they had built a coalition of hope, a testament to the resilience of the forgotten. Back on New Terra, Director Foster watched as the Galactic Assembly concluded its session. The delegates filed out, exchanging ideas and plans for the future. Foster felt a swell of pride and determination. Humanity and its allies had proven that diversity was a strength, that unity didn't require uniformity, and that even the darkest chapters of history could lead to a brighter future. In the years to come, the Commonwealth would face new challenges and opportunities: exploration beyond known space, the integration of more species, and the ongoing quest for peace and prosperity. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never forget the day the exiled became the architects of a new era, nor the starburst symbol that now shone as a beacon of hope across the stars. Epilogue. On a distant world, beyond the edge of the galaxy, ancient machinery stirred to life. Lights blinked on, casting shadows in a cavernous control room. A signal had been received, a message of cooperation, unity, and hope. The machine systems activated fully, scanning the incoming data. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the chamber. They are ready. 3 new species have requested Commonwealth membership this month, the navigator replied with a smile. Apparently, news of what we've accomplished is spreading faster than our ships can travel. Dr. Kate Reynolds sat in her research facility, writing the final chapters of her historical record of humanity's rise. The elderly scientist had spent the past 5 years documenting every aspect of the transformation, from exile to empire. The Council made a fundamental error, she wrote. They believed that casting out their problems would make those problems disappear. Instead, they gave those problems the freedom to become solutions. The species they threw away built something better than what they lost. As New Terra's sun set over the Commonwealth capital, children from dozens of different species played together in parks their grandparents could never have imagined. Former slave worlds now governed themselves. Former enemies had become the closest of allies. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had once been forbidden to communicate. The forgotten exiles had indeed built an empire, but not through conquest or fear. They had built it through a simple revolutionary idea that every species deserved dignity, every world deserved choice, and every being deserved hope. Sam Davis, now serving as Commonwealth Director of Interspecies Relations, stood on his office, balcony watching ships from across the galaxy arrive and depart New Terra's spaceport. Each ship carried the Commonwealth symbol, a star surrounded by interconnected circles, but more importantly, they carried a promise that no species would ever again be forgotten or cast aside. Aside from being vast and full of wonders, the galaxy's greatest marvel was how swiftly fear could be replaced by hope when people were given the chance to choose their own future. The Commonwealth had proven that empires built on cooperation could be stronger than any empire built on conquest. And in the darkness between the stars, other civilizations were beginning to take notice of the remarkable achievements of the forgotten. The age of exile was over. The age of unity had begun.